Hello there, listeners. Ian here from Don the Stat, joined once again by the fabulous Rick Edwards. Rick last joined me about just over a month ago to discuss his draft rankings, and he's back today to give us an update for July. Rick, thanks for joining me. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Ian. A lot warmer tonight. It was pretty cold on Saturday. I went to two under-18s games, and at Craigieburn it was about 9 degrees and felt like 2, according to my app.
You're very committed there, Rick, and we certainly do appreciate all your efforts getting out to these games and getting a look at this young talent, especially as Essendon fans. It's about the only thing we have left to look forward to in the season. I know there's a lot of people really focus on this given where Essendon's at and given Essendon's quite a hard watch at the moment. I certainly do appreciate all the work that you're doing and all the vision that you're getting, because it does give us something to hope for.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. It's a lot of fun. I guess what everyone wants to know is about the number one pick. That's a real focus, isn't it, for Essendon people at the moment?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are going to go through your updated draft rankings for July. There have been a few changes in positions from where you're at with June. I guess just in general, before we get on to that, it has been, National Champs Month, and we've gone through most of the rounds. I think there's 1 week to go at time of recording, but you've got a fair look at most of the top level talent. Just in general, have you seen the level of talent this year at the Champs? I know that you haven't been watching it closely for that many years, but you did sort of start last year looking at it a bit more closely than you had in the past. How's it compared to, say, last year, and how confident are you in terms of the depth of talent in this draft at this stage?
I've been to three. I've been to 3 games of the championships, and I've seen most of the others via the stream. And I reckon that the depth is better this year than last year, and that could work out well if we do, in fact, end up with a few picks in the 20s. I think there's some real class, elite sort of talent right at the top of the draft, which I'm sure we'll touch on soon. But yeah, I really like this pool, Humi.
That's really good to hear, because I think I've spoken about it a lot on Don the Start, is that if you sort of project forward with what we could look like that we are getting in terms of draft assistance and extra picks, we're going to need that draft pool to really sort of pull down to around that 25 range. Then we can start getting a lot of talent. And as we'll sort of talk about right at the end of this recording, there's a lot of holes in Essendon's list, or there will be a lot of holes in Essendon's list after this draft and trade period. So we are going to need to fill quite a lot of roles there. And so to have a wide variety of players available that are a decent level of talent is certainly going to be very warranted for Essendon. Shall we get into your updated rankings there, Rick?
Yeah, well, starting of course with number 1, it's been a bit like an epic Melbourne Cup finish where there's 3 horses and they're going stride for stride in the last 200 metres. And I may have changed my mind a couple of times about which of the 3 I like the most at number 1, but I had a look at Harry Van Hattem on Saturday up close, and he's my number 1 in the sort of open pool, taking out, of course, Cody Walker and Dougie Cochrane.
Yeah, indeed. And just on those first 2, Walker and Cochrane, I know that Walker came back in the last Vic Country game, wasn't it, and performed at the level I think people expect him to, which is why he's there. Cochrane, there's a lot of talk that he will be back soon, so I guess we'll know a bit more about whether Essendon at this stage is going to bid on Walker or Cochrane at pick 1. There could be a bit of shenanigans in the background with teams, talking about what they could do to avoid bids and providing support there. But at this stage, you have Essendon bidding on Walker at number 1.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he as you said, he was quite good in his first game back last week. 35 disposals and 18 contested. So yeah, I think, we'll probably have a crack at him. Why not?
Yeah, indeed. It's always good to make the Blues pay up a little bit more than they otherwise would. Quite happy not to help those guys out. Or I also don't like Port for always taking out players. So maybe we'll go double bid, but that's the future. We can discuss that later. But let's talk about Harry Van Hattem, who you have as number 3 in the draft and the first in open pool. You and I were talking on Thursday at Essendon training about Harry Van Hattem and how, since we'd last spoken, he hadn't quite set the world on fire at national champs level, and you at that stage we're going to have him dropping down the draft order. What did you see on Saturday that has meant that you have kept him as that number 1 pick in the open pool?
Yeah, a lot can change in a few days, Yumi. I was thinking that, maybe we can pick up a ruckman with a pick in the 10 to 20 sort of range. Maybe I think Herbert probably would go too early, but someone like Benjamin Van Rooyen, I thought maybe we can be happy with him. But I think Van Hatten is putting up an irresistible sort of case to be picked. And I've seen him 5 times up close and watched him really closely. And he's sort of been building in the champs. So he's had 3 games. Of course, he came back after an injury, and he's sort of struggled in the first game and the second game, but he's gradually sort of got better. He's had a problem, I think, getting to contests. Like, you can just tell that he's not at his peak fitness. So he struggled to get to too many contests. And I think the pace as well, anyone that's been at a champs game and been at a talent league game, there's a real difference in the speed of the game. And I think that has been a challenge for him. So in the first game against WA, he was beaten by Van Rooyen and Walsh. In the second game against the Allies, he was up against a guy called Jonah Harris, who's from the Gold Coast Academy, and he took the honours that day. Harry, he had 24 hit-outs and had 6 score involvements and 3 marks. And then, but in that game, the one thing I did notice about him, though, even though he wasn't at his best, he was getting close to taking a lot more marks. Like, he almost pulled down a couple of contested marks, and someone was just in front of him and had their hands in front of him. So I could just see him building, and that sort of led to quite an impressive performance in his next champs game against South Australia, where he got 26 hit-outs, and he was landing them on a plate for his midfielders. Like, I don't know if people have seen, there's been a couple of clips I've put up, but he just really placed the ball so delightfully for his midfielders. And he was up against, this is the really key thing to know, is that he was up against a couple of really good South Australian ruckmen. Ethan Herbert, who I mentioned before, and he'll go in the top 15. He only got 4 hit-outs, and the other ruckman, Janeway, only got 9 hit-outs. So between them, 13 compared to Van Hatten, 26. Now, Janeway is a big guy too. He's 207 centimetres, so he's even taller than Harry. So this gives you a bit of a guide to what sort of Van Hatten's leap is. I think for me, there's so many pros. When I was thinking about who should be number one, there's so many pros about Van Hatten. He can leap higher than Nick Naitanui in the testing they did on Nick Nat way back. His tackling is great. The last 4 games, he's managed to get himself free kicks from tackles, and his aggression is fantastic. Even when he played against the bigger, more mature VFL rucks earlier in the year, when he was playing for the Australian Academy, he was able to use his strength against them and wasn't overawed or overwhelmed. His ruck craft, he just gives his midfielders first use. He's just jumps so high and then can hit in different directions. So you can just imagine how good he would be for the likes of Sully Roby and Sam Durham. His kicking is very good as well. He can kick well on the run and from a standing start. He's got a bit of forward craft as well. I was watching him play a bit of forward line on Saturday. Probably 65% ruck, 35% forward, and he knew where to run, and he's just so fearless in the air as well. Like, he took a couple of contested marks, but nearly got a couple more just by throwing himself in the air, from sideways or going backwards, just totally fearless. So when you look at all those sort of pros, what the Bombers could get is a contested marking, hit-out champion, aggressive 205 centimetre beast who is a cross between Max Gawn, Luke Jackson, and Brodie Grundy. So to me, that sounds too hard to overlook.
Yeah, it's pretty enticing, the way that you put it there. I guess there's a couple others that you think are probably around that first pick, and the one you're really excited about when we spoke on Thursday, and probably until Van Hatten put in that performance at the Coates League level, was Ethan Drever from Victoria. He's a midfielder, 188 centimetre midfielder. Tell us about Drever and why you were so positive about him.
Yeah, I do really like him, Ian, and it's really a toss of the coin between him and Van Hatten. Drever turned 18 last Friday. He's an Essendon fan. He's an 188 centimetre inside-outside mid. I've heard people compare him to Finn Callahan, but I went with Bontempelli, and I'm going to stick with Bontempelli because Callahan doesn't kick goals, but Drever does. He kicked in the first champs game, he kicked 4 points, but then in the next two games, he kicked one goal in each of them. So he really does hit the scoreboard. He played in the champs. He's played midfield, but more sort of an outside mid. People might have seen him not being the extractor in the champs. But that is actually his role with the Rebels. He's that tough inside mid extractor who loves to tackle and pressure. But I think whatever the coaches, the big metro coaches or big country coaches have wanted him to sort of be a bit more outside at the champs, and he's done that. On the outside, he's got this sort of these dancing feet and can cut through congestion like a hot knife through butter. He's just all class, and a tall ball winning extractor who can run on the outside and kick goals is a really nice combination, I think.
Yeah, indeed. And again, I think as Essendon fans, we are going to. I think it's. I guess with pick one, you almost go for best talent, right? You're not necessarily going for positional fit, and even then with Essendon, we kind of need every position. So you're sort of looking for that. And I guess the fact that he's done it in the champs compared to Van Hatten, who hasn't quite performed at as well at that level, does give you pause about whether you just Van Hatten's the slam dunk or whether you look at someone like a Drever. And as you say, if he's a Bontempelli type, well, Dodoro loves to tell the story about how he was trying to trade up for Bontempelli. 13, 14 years later, we could get the next Bontempelli potentially with Drever there. The one that's been forced back in your rankings, just one spot, is Archie Butler, someone Essendon fans have also been really high on. Is Butler moving back in this rankings more about Drever, or is there something about Archie's game that has meant he's fallen a little in your rankings?
Yeah, look, there's just not much. You can throw a blanket over the top three, I think, and I think they're all elite talents and they've all got a bit of X factor. I've heard some comparisons, people saying that, the number one's not going to be as a standout as leaders perhaps in previous drafts. Well, I don't buy that. I think the top three, whoever you get, you can be happy with. But for me, it's just Van Hatten. The idea of having another Dutchman 50 years after Paul Van Haar debuted for the Bombers, there's a bit of romance there. I don't mind it. But back to Butler, he sort of had a lot of flashes through the champs. So he sort of hasn't put together that irresistible four-quarter game. But there's so much to like. I'm not sure if I've seen anyone who can rove off a pack like Butler can. His timing is just exquisite. He hits the pack just at the right time all the time. He's got pace. He's good overhead. He works hard. Anyone that says he doesn't, well, I can't agree with that. I've just watched him off the ball, and he does work hard, does run hard, does tackle. He can kick a miracle goal. The only thing with the champs is I would have liked to have seen him play midfield more. He did play a bit of midfield for the Australian Academy, and I really liked him in there. He was able to win the ball and use his quick feet and quick hands. So that's the only thing I would have liked to have seen him. But, of course, his year's probably cut short now. But yeah, there's not much separating 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, you're right. Unfortunately for him, he has got that injury, and it probably has meant that he's not going to necessarily be able to get that midfield time, even at under 18s level, that I think teams would probably want to see from him to see if he's got that, not necessarily a forward mid, whether he can be a mid forward, 60, 70% mid, 30% forward, whether he has that in his tool bag. Because I think he's the sort of player that if he can do that sort of thing, sort of like a Toby Green sort of thing where he can be effective both as a midfielder and as a forward. I think if you could see that and feel like that was going to be a thing for him projecting into AFL, then you're really talking about him as a first pick in the open pool, because if you can do both, as we've seen with Toby Green's career, you certainly can have an amazing impact at AFL level.
I think that's really fair, and I think the Toby Green comparison is also quite accurate. The only difference is I think he's quicker. He's definitely quicker than Toby.
Yeah. So outside of those three, I guess we're probably moving into areas where at this stage, based on what they've produced, they're probably outside of the range of where Essendon pick's going to be. But at number 6, you've got Coda Edwards from South Australia. Anything to say about Coda?
Yeah, he hasn't sort of set the world on fire in the championships, but I'm going to hold firm with him because, he shows so much talent as that sort of another big-bodied, bustling, fearless sort of midfielder that kicks goals. A bit like Sullivan Roby. He had disposals 19, 28 and 26, so he averaged 24 disposals for the champs, which wasn't too bad, but he only got one goal. I would have liked to have seen him kick more goals, but yeah, I think he's a real talent, and he's not quite up with that sort of top three, but I do like him.
Yeah. And then at pick number 7, you've gone with Jordan Knapp, or the rank 7th rank, you've got Jordan Knapp from Eastern Rangers, a midfielder. Tell us a little bit about Jordan.
Yeah, I think last time I might have said he reminds me a bit of George Wardlaw with the way he attacks the ball, but I think I've come up with a better comparison. That's Bailey Smith of Geelong. So Knapp just runs all day, and he probably averaged the most up to now. Big Metro got one more game. He's probably averaged the most disposals of his team, averaging 24.5, and I reckon he's also been the premier clearance player for Vic Metro thus far. So he's put in a really good championships.
Yeah. I guess the question with those sort of players is, does he have the extra strings to his bow? And I guess, especially from an Essendon point of view, we've just taken Dyson Sharp. I think we expect to be that sort of extractor going forward. So the need for someone like him at this stage is a bit lower. Let's move on to your number 8, and this player has moved up one spot since June. That's Will Malady, forward from Gippsland. Tell us about Will.
Yeah, we're going to talk about needs for the Bombers. Perhaps a marking forward is not a need, but I do love this guy a lot. So he's taken 14 marks in 2 games for Vic Metro as that sort of second, third tall forward. Last game he took 5 marks, and 4 of those were contested. So he has just got the best hands. He's able to get separation on the lead. He's very good at that. He hits the pack hard. At Marvel a couple of weeks ago, he hit this pack from behind, and you could hear it at Flinders Street Station. It was just this huge, impactful noise. He reminds me of Logan Morris, very, very similar, and his defensive pressure again. I'm seeing this in every game I watch. He does run and chase and pressure. So, I love his intensity and I love his competitiveness.
Yeah, very good. Also moving up a spot in this month's draft rankings is Harvey Cook, a mid 176 centimetre mid forward from Northern. Tell us a little bit about Harvey, Rick.
Yeah, so Harvey is another one that I want the Bombers to pick up, and I might tag Essendon in a tweet soon. That's how much I love him. So he's played forward and a little bit of midfield. So he's averaged 19 disposals, and he is a goal kicker. He kicked 3 goals in the last Vic Metro game, but he's not a selfish kid next to near goal. He'll give it off. He's had actually 21 score involvements across the 3 championships games. So he will give it off, and he also loves to tackle. He's had 11 tackles across 3 games. So when he goes on ball, he is a really great extractor. Even though he's not particularly tall, he gets the ball out a bit like Lachie Neale. And when he does go forward, he's quite strong for his size. He's a bit like Keziah Pickett, can kick a really spectacular goal, but also will bring his teammates into the game. On Saturday, he returned to play for Northern Knights, and he was the highest ranked player on the ground with 28 disposals, 4 tackles and 2 goals. Just a great player who can play midfield and also go forward and kick goals and create goals.
Sounds pleasing. If he's if he fades a bit compared to where you've got ranking, we've picked Harry Van Hatten with our pick. Having a teammate of his with him, which surely will be pleasing for Harry and for Harvey if that sort of thing happens. But I'm really excited to talk about your number 10, because this person's come with a real bullet. It wasn't on your top 20 list when we did this in June, but it has broken into the top 10, and that's Billy Wigmore from Western Jets, a defender. What's impressed you so much about Billy that he's shot so far up your rankings, Rick?
Yeah, he really surprised me, because I saw him in March at Craigieburn, and he was playing forward at that stage for Western, and he kicked 4 goals on that particular day. So it's only been pretty recently, right just before the champs, that he's been moved to the back line, but with great effect. For Victoria Metro, he's had 33. That's 33 intercepts in 3 games. So he just knows how to read the ball, knows where to be. He's brave in the air, got good hands. He's taken contested marks. So he's been a real surprise packet, but he's so safe in the back line. And he's really impressed me, and I think his ability to intercept is just next level.
Yeah, that's outstanding. I guess, we're going to talk about it a bit later or what Essendon's needs are. Well, a certain intercepting Essendon defender it looks like they're on the way out, so we certainly could use someone like that. I guess just on him, you spoke a lot about his ability to read the play and, cut off opposition attacks. What's your thoughts on his disposal? Because obviously it's such an important part now for defenders to be able to move the ball well. How do you see where do you see his disposal at?
Yeah, I think he's pretty safe. Yeah, he's pretty safe. So yeah, he's an accurate kick for goal, a set shot for goal, and generally his kicking's pretty good.
Well, that's good to hear. Moving on to number 11, we've our second ruckman, and someone you spoke about when we were talking about Van Hatten in South Australia's ruckman, Ethan Herbert. You mentioned that Van Hatten sort of had, the wood over Herbert in their matchup. But how has Herbert gone up against other ruckmen in the Champs Ball?
Yeah, you're right. He did struggle against Van Hatten, but he has been pretty good. His last game, he was pretty effective. And the one thing about him is he's got this knack of actually taking the ball out of the ruck contest and handballing it or kicking it. So he gets a lot of clearances that way. His marking's been okay, and I think one of his real strengths is his competitiveness. So I was quite happy to leave him in my top 20.
Yeah, indeed. And again, if we bypass Van Hatten or somehow we end up with pick 2 in the open draft, and Richmond are probably also looking for a ruckman, they take Harry Van Hatten. I think, as we're going to talk about, we're probably going to be looking at a ruckman to bring in, and Herbert certainly could be that. Another person who is in the same spot they were from prior month is Kobe LaCroix from W. How have you seen him? Have you seen him this year?
Yeah, he hasn't played since we last chatted, so there's no real sort of update on him. But he did impress me when he was playing as that sort of leading half forward. Very good hands, very mobile as well. He's got a nice side step. So yeah, I really liked him earlier in the year.
And then onto your big dropper here was at number 8 in June, but has fallen a little bit in Noah Williams, all the way down to 13, a midfield/defender from Geelong. What's happened with Noah that's seen him drop so far down your rankings there, Rick?
Yeah, he copped an injury, so he missed one of the Champs games, but has come back and has been good. He got 20 disposals against South Australia and 19 versus WA. He's had 13 tackles across those 2 games. So he's just one of the safer sort of options, I think. You can really bank on him turning out to be a reasonable player, but he just doesn't sort of have the same sort of flair and X factor as some of the others. He's a bit like Zach Merrett. That comparison's been made. Yeah, so defensively he will work hard. He's got a nice left foot kick, but yeah, just not much flair or extravagance with Noah.
Yeah. Moving on to number 14, this player's moved up 1 since your last rankings. I think there's a lot of positive talk about this player, and I know there's some other draft watchers who have him a lot higher in their rankings. You obviously rate him, given that he's in your top 20, but you don't have him quite the same level as some of the other watchers, and this is Gus. Forgive me for butchering your name, Gus, but Texera. What have you seen about Gus, and why do you have him at 14 rather than a bit higher?
Yeah, I don't want to say anything about the other draft watchers. Some of them are very good. So, obviously I respect where they've put him. But for me, he's a really hard one to get a feel for. He hasn't played much mid at the Chance. He's just played a lot of forward. And, he sort of shows some flashes, but he's kicked 7 goals, 7. So he sort of hasn't made the most of his opportunities in the forward line. But, he does have a bit of class. There's a bit of Max Holmes about him, sort of strong midfielder. But, yeah, just hasn't played in the midfield much. And as I said, just sort of hasn't made the most of his opportunities in the forward line. And Big Metro have had a lot of inside 50s. They've been the dominant team of the championships. And I reckon they'll end up winning it. I think they might have already won enough games to do that. But, they've been very dominant.
Yeah, indeed. But again, I think game projecting forward, but where you've got him ranked is where we could start to see potentially a pick if we're depending on what we get for, say, a Zach Merrett or a Jordan Ridley. And, even if he's not a midfielder, we do need forwards who can kick goals. So he might be in range for us around then. You've got another new entry at your number 15 in Tyson Bradley, a key defender from Sandy Dragons. What's impressed you about Tyson this past month?
Yeah, I think he's the best key defender in the draft now, and I know that's going to create some controversy with all the Clancy Snell lovers. But Tyson Bradley is big. He's a really big key defender, 196 centimeters, and he's had 24 intercepts in 3 games. So he's just been like a brick wall. And he's also had 6 contested marks as well. So he's been very impressive, and you just can't deny how solid he's been. I think just a word on Snell, who is in a lot of top tens. Compared to Bradley, who had 24 intercepts so far, Snell's only had 15 intercepts. I just don't think Snell has been as impressive, and he continues to struggle against the really big guys, Snell, the really huge monster forwards. And he was exposed in the match against WA, it was, where WA got a run on when their 2 forwards took consecutive marks on him within about 2 minutes. So Bradley is, for mine, the best key defensive player.
Yeah, I just went quickly back and looked at your June rankings, and you actually had Snell at 13, so he's dropped quite far away. He's not in your top 20. I guess just, roughly, you focused a lot on your top 20 rankings. Got a rough estimate of where you have Snell at the moment?
Yeah, so he's just outside the top 20, just outside the top 20. But, for me, it's not just about stats. It's about, accountability and stuff. And I just feel he gives a bit too much leeway to his opponents.
Yeah. Well, again, he's going to have some time at the back end with the under-18s to show a bit more, so he could move back up again. Another new entry for you at number 16 in Heath Melody, from a midfielder from you. I think he's the highest rate. Yes, he's the highest rated midfielder you've got from UA on your list. What have you seen from Heath in the championships that's caught your eye?
Yeah, I think initially he was a bit sort of restricted, but he's now been let off the leash. I guess you could call him Unchained Melody now. He's been great for WA, and in fact has been named the MVP for WA. So he's averaged 28 disposal, 5 marks and 5 rebound 50s. He's played halfback and mid. There's a bit of Nick Martin in him. He sort of runs all day like our great Nick does. Just seems to go and gets 1-2s, so he'll give it off and get it back. The only query for me is his kicking is sometimes not that great.
Good. Moving on to number 17 and the little pocket rocket, Marlon Neocleous. I've butchered the name. This is my new Taylor Duray. Marlon Neocleous from Gippsland, 168 centimetre forward, listed as smaller than even Nick Watson, who obviously a lot of people had written off a pre-draft or were concerned about because of his height. And Nick certainly has proven any doubts about him wrong. I guess that's probably helped someone like Marlon in terms of how people perceive him, because they've seen what Nick Watson can do at AFL level. He's not rated as high as Nick, but certainly there's some good positive words about him. What have you seen about Marlon this past month?
Yeah, I'm letting you have first crack at all the difficult names, Ian, and you're doing a pretty good job. There is a bit of Nick Watson with him. He has been injured. I think it's been a back complaint. So he's only played the one champs game, and that was 19 disposals. He moved in to the midfield in the second half in that game and hit up the forwards with some really nice passes, had 4 clearances and a goal. So he's a really smart player. He is good close to goal, can kick a miraculous goal, but he's very good in the midfield as well. So I think, he could even be higher, but he just hasn't, like I said, he hasn't played footy for a little while. So that's where I've got him at 17.
Yeah. Now, this name is exciting for Essendon fans. Maybe a few Essendon fans were hoping that this player wouldn't get as high, but it was really good to see him sort of make his comeback in the last week or two. We did get to witness him at Essendon training on Thursday when him and some of the other NGA boys were down there. But Blake Justice makes his first appearance in your rankings for this year after coming back last couple of weeks. I know that this is roughly where around he was rated heading into this year before he received his injury. What have you seen from Blake in his comeback that gives you confidence that he will be sort of where people projected him to be at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, his first game back was for Calder, and he was in the best for them that day. He didn't miss a beat. He was so clean below the knees and extracted a lot of inside ball. He's played in 2 of the big champ games. First game, 10 disposals, 6 score involvements and 1 goal. The second game, 14 disposals 7 scoring involvements and a couple of points. He didn't have his kicking boots on. But yeah, that's 13 score involvements across 2 games. So he's just a smart player, unselfish, brings other guys into the game. And the thing about him, I think he's almost the cleanest player in the draft, Ian. He just doesn't fumble. And for those who haven't seen him play, he's an inside mid who can mark, is fearless in the air and is fearless in the ground. So fearless on the ground rather. So it's been a fantastic return for him. And I think part of the ranking is certainly on what he's shown, bearing in mind he hasn't played midfield for Vic Metro because they're midfield stacked, but that's his best position. And it's also partly the ranking on what he can be. So hopefully they do put him in the midfield for their last game on Sunday. Because he's so clean and great at extracting the ball.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And even if he does start to push up the draft boards and ends up going into top 20 on draft 9, we are going to have the picks to be able to match a bid. So yeah, I don't think there'll be any problems with us getting him. Number 19, Gabriel Patterson from South Australia, a forward. Tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, so he's a really quickish sort of forward, very good on the lead. Can mark, can play that high half forward role. He hasn't once again set the champs on fire, but he has shown some glimpses, and I just think he's a pretty safe bet if you're looking for a small to medium forward. He works hard both ways, and pretty safe bet.
Yeah. And then finally rounding out your top 20, another new entrant, this one also from WA, and another smaller player in Leo Steed, 176 centimetre midfielder. Small for a modern midfielder to a little extent, but obviously has a lot of talent to be ranked in the top 20 for you. What did you notice about Leo during this year's champs?
It is his height that worries me a little bit, Humi, but it's hard to overlook him. His first game, he got 24 disposals, 8 tackles and 6 clearances in the champs, and I thought, this guy can play a bit. He loves winning contested possessions and clearances. He's got sort of quick feet and quick hands, and he just runs all day. So he had a really super impressive championships. Maybe unlucky not to be WA's MVP, which went to Melody, but he's certainly one to watch and could rise up the rankings.
Excellent. Well, look, that does leave us with a few players, particularly some that were in your top 20 last time that dropped out a bit. I guess just a few names that you sent through to me that you want to bring up. Let's start with Harrison Leader, from another player from the Northern Knights, 193 centimetre forward. He's just outside your top 20. Just tell us a little bit about Harrison.
Yeah, he played the first Big Metro game, but then got dropped. But I saw him on Saturday, and he could have kicked 6 or 7 goals. Like his hands are just so good. So he's a bit like Nate Caddy, at the same height, great hands, but he has a problem with goal kicking. So I think he kicked something like...
Sounds exactly like Nate Caddy.
Yeah, he's got the same hair as well. Yeah, so he kicked 2-3 or 3-4 or something like that. So, but just got great hands. So I really do like him, and he might go quite early in the draft.
Yeah. Another Harrison. This one, Harrison Chapman, a 189 centimetre wing from Eastern Rangers. Tell us about Harrison.
Yeah, so once again, just like the other Harrison, he got dropped from the Vic Metro side. He's a really tall midfielder, winger with exceptional speed. He went back and played for Eastern on Saturday against Calder and got 20 disposals and a goal. So, he had, as I said, he has elite speed and size. So, I still have a bit of time for him.
Yeah, talked about Clancy Snell already. Harvey Sporton Guy, another forward, this one from WA, 194 centimetres.
Yeah. So it was good to see some of the WA and SA guys I hadn't seen before. And Sporton Guy really took some good marks, some contested marks, and was good when the ball hit the ground as well. So he's one to watch in terms of tall forwards.
Excellent. And then rounding out your honourable mentions is Khaled El Souki, 175 centimetre forward midfield from Western Jets. Is NGA tied to the Bulldogs? But depending on what they have to spend to get Butters, there could be questions about whether they're able to match him. So it is interesting to observe him. He was another one that was in your top 20 last time. What's caused him to sort of fall back in the ratings?
Yeah, he's dropped out of the top 20 because he hasn't played much footy. He's been injured, but he returns on the weekend for the Jets and kicked 2 goals and got 18 disposals. I haven't seen any of the footage of the game, but it looks like he must have played midfield and maybe a little forward, which is what he does. So I guess a bit like Harvey Cook, plays midfield and goes forward as well. So yeah, I quite like him. And as you point out, the Bulldogs might be in trouble if they do have to spend a lot of draft capital on Butters.
Yeah, indeed, and we'll see what happens. There's still a lot, despite what a couple of people say. I'm sure it's still not decided where Butters is going, and then what the Bulldogs are going to have to do to get him. There is talk that we're in to say an Artie Jones from the Bulldogs, and that might be the sort of player that they have to let go to get the draft capital in to match a Butters, or then to match an El Suki if they really like him. So there's a bit to play out there, and I think that even if we don't necessarily get access to El Suki, generally, I think that there's a world where them needing to get him is going to benefit us in some way. So yeah, that's just all the permutations that play out with the draft. We're going to end. You did ask me before we recorded what I thought Essendon needed to focus on draft wise, and I first said everything. I feel like we need everything, and you asked me to be a bit more specific, so I will do you that favor. I think in terms of what we really need. I think we need a ruckman. I think this year especially, I've talked, ever since I started on the start, I've sort of talked down ruckman and the need for a really good ruckman, based on the history of AFL premiers. But I think the way in which the rules have changed have shown that the ruckman are even more valuable than they probably have been in the past. So I've probably come around a bit to the idea of getting a number one ruck. And I do have question marks about Nick Bryan and his ability to compete after the tap. So I think we should be looking for a really good ruckman. And then I think the other areas that I'm most concerned are really to do with what we've lost, what we're going to be losing this year. So obviously we're probably going to be losing Zach Merritt. So we're going to lose that sort of outside midfield class. I think that's where we hope Jacob Farrow goes with his kicking ability, but there's no guarantee that he's able to move off the halfback. So I think we should be looking to fill that. We're probably going to be losing Jordan Ridley. So we're going to be losing that interceptability that he has. So we probably are going to need some sort of key defender, and whether that's an intercept defender like a Jordan Ridley, or that's a lockdown key defender, which would then free up, say, a Reid or a Hayes to act as that interceptor. I think we could be open to either option because we've got the flexibility with a Reid or a Hayes to do the other role. And then I just think we still need to find more small forwards, more half forwards. You know, we just got belted by the Lions and they have great half forwards and small forwards, and we don't really have anything at that level. We do hope Isaac Kako gets there. Hussein Al-Ashkar has shown a little bit as a small forward, and I was really pleased to see him get so many tackles in the VFL on the weekend, because I think that's probably the defensive aspects has been the real knock in his game at senior level. So if you can translate that, that's pleasing. We're looking there. So I guess, you've got those. I'll ask you, Rick, given I've spoken about and given what you've seen, do you think Harry Van Hatten's the right pick for us if we do have pick number one, barring a big change in how things go for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think certainly right now he's who I would pick, but there's a long way to go. There's probably a couple of months of footy left. Northern will go quite deep. They're just about the best team, so we'll get to see a lot of Van Hatten. So things could change. Drever could sort of mount a case. So right now it's Van Hatten, but that could really change. There's as I said, not much between those three. Unfortunately, Butler is done for the year.
Yeah, and I guess if we're thinking about those other two archetypes in particular that I spoke about, sort of the outside good using midfielder and the defender, if you sort of think about the players you've got in that 15 to 25 range, if we had our choice from that, because I think, as I said, I think that's where our picks are going to be after our first pick. What are the two players that you'd want us to take that would fit those archetypes?
Yeah, so Wigmore is the intercepting defender that I quite like. In terms of maybe other sort of small defenders, Antrobus from the Stingrays, who was in my top 20 last month. If we're looking at a key lockdown defender, it's Bradley from Sandringham, I think. Yeah. In terms of the small forwards, we do have some options. Harvey Cook is my number one in that regard, but Neocleous. Yeah, I thought I'd do better than you, but I've done worse than you. He's certainly an option, and El Suki is as well. And there's some other guys who are sort of outside the top 30 that I haven't got front of mind. But yeah, so there are guys there who could fill our needs, I think. And like you said, in terms of ruckman, if we don't go for Van Hatten, there are, 3 or 4 reasonable other ruckmen.
Yeah, indeed. So I think there's plenty of scope, and as you say, the depth of talent, of good level talent, looks quite good, and should be in those range of those picks that we're going to be in. But again, we've still got a couple of months to go. I imagine that we'll be back here in a month's time talking about what's changed between July and August. And there could be much like last year with Sullivan Roby, there could be a bolter that emerges from the blue that we start talking about and start obsessing over like we did with Sullivan last year.
Yeah, well, that's right. See, Roby had his breakout game in August last year. So, yeah, it's possible that we might have another bolter like Sullivan Roby.
Indeed. Well, look, thanks so much for joining me again, Rick. I'm sure listeners to Don the Stat know where you are, but if you're discovering this for the first time and hearing Rick's thoughts for the first time, can you just remind people where they can find you and support you in the work that you do?
Yeah, so I'm on Patreon, so I'm sure we'll link to that. And my Patreon, my patrons will be hearing this first. It'll be exclusive for them. So I hope they enjoy it.
Indeed. And again, as always, a big thank you to you for spending some time with me and sharing your insights. And of course, I do recommend that people sign up to Rick's Patreon, not just for things like this and his draft, these draft talks, but the vision that he gets is certainly excellent, and angles and viewpoints that aren't readily available there. So definitely worth it if you are interested in draft content. Well, that'll do us for this evening. Till next time, stay safe and go Dons.